Welcome back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic. I'm with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty, former Braves reliever, who did not get to win 5 consecutive division titles with the Braves. What's up, Eric?
Nothing. I'm starting to really, every year that I'm done playing, I'm starting to really enjoy and look forward to the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Especially the format this year, man, when it starts with these wildcard games. They got 4 baseball games on today, man.
Same time, I love it.
And they're all urgent. There's such an urgency to a best of 3. It's much better than a wild card game, but there's still that extreme urgency because you can't afford to get down 0-1, really, you know?
It's got to be like an 85% chance of winning the series or higher if after you win that first game.
Yeah, unless you're really stacked rotation-wise. And if you're really stacked rotation-wise, you probably weren't going to be in a wild card game, you know? You're probably going to be a division winner with one of the 2 teams in each league with a bye. So, pretty cool. But the Braves, man, they took them a while to get rebuilt, and they went through a lull there where the payroll was slashed, and you wondered if they'd ever get back to those 90s glory days. And, man, not only are they back, but they're set up better than ever because of the revenues they're getting. They're going to keep getting from the Battery. And now with all these young players that Alex has signed up long-term, whereas back in the 90s, that was a constant cycle. They always had to be on top of it, because they were never going to draft real high. So they always had to trade, spend money. But these guys are signed up long-term, man. He's got these guys under control. They would take multiple bad injuries for the Braves not to be competitive for the next 5-6 years.
I mean, if you're another GM, you hate AA. Like, how did you get these guys to sign these deals with all the money coming in? I mean, if you would be getting to the point where you start having to pay Acuna, Albies, Riley's deals, I think, kind of fair. It's not crazy bad, but they're going to be able to he did good. It's good for the team too.
Good.
Yeah, the team did pretty good.
Tops out at $22 million.
Yeah,
he's going to finish top 6 or 7 in MVP. I mean, he's going to be a $30 million player when he's making 22, at least 30. If he keeps hitting 30 to 40 home runs a year and playing good defense.
Yes, you got those guys signed, and then Harris signs his deal on top of it.
Yeah. If they get Dansby signed, man, they are gold for the next 6 years, 8 years, whatever. Just a hell of a weekend with the Mets, and then the predictable lull coming out of that. They got in after beating the Mets, and on a Sunday night game on ESPN, they got into Miami at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and that was a true postseason atmosphere in that Mets series. I mean, it was electric. They were emotionally exhausted.
If they got in on time.
So they came out and they were flat as hell in that game in that first game against the Marlins, which was totally expected. I mean,
you go into the flattest atmosphere too.
Yeah, I mean, you go from 42, almost 43,000 energized, crazy fans to, I think the announced attendance was 12 in that first game, and there was probably 8,000 in the place.
Yeah, you could yell who you want to warm up in the bullpen in that park.
Yeah,
yell it down to the bullpen.
So they got beat in the first game. They got shut out, and then they come back, and it's like, okay, now we got 2 games to get this done. The Mets and Snit didn't think the Nationals would lose, or I'm sorry, the Mets would lose against the Nationals. Snit was like, we know we got to win this thing because they're not going to lose. After getting swept by the Braves, he knew the Mets were not going to lose to the Nationals, and so the Braves came out the second game and took care of business. And to their credit, because you did not want to wait and have that push to the last game, then you all of a sudden you have serious pressure.
Yeah.
So they took care of business, and cap tip to the guy that I was shocked when Snit said he was starting Odorizzi when he told us late Monday night he's starting Odorizzi Tuesday. Odorizzi pitched great. A lot like he did in that St. Louis games. He gave 5 strong innings, exactly what they needed. Then they turn it over their horses because right now the bullpen is really functioning where they can click off 4 shutties every time, just about. I mean, the guys they've got their 4 or 5 guys going right now, 5 guys. And they did what they're supposed to do, which they did all through the Mets series, and they did again in that game. So Braves are in a really good spot right now, going into the division series Tuesday against the winner of Philly St. Louis. And both of those teams, one of those teams that wins is going to have used its best couple of starters in that division series, if not 3 of their best starters.
Yeah, you'd rather. I mean, you definitely want it to go 3 if you're watching. I'm trying to decide who I'd rather play. You made a good point. I mean, Philly has 2 horses that can pitch with anybody if they're
Wheeler
locked
and Nola,
in.
when they're on, man.
Something about the Cardinals, though, I just don't. They do just weird stuff happens for them when you play them.
Yeah,
got a lot
I mean,
of experience.
it's Pujols. It's like the game's there. Fortunately for the Braves, it's going to start here because you don't want to start in St. Louis because they're going to have a great atmosphere there. That just like they are here. It's going to be Yachty's last postseason, Pujols' last postseason. Waino's going to come back, but it's going to be a electric atmosphere for those guys' last games, and Wainwright pitching at that place. In those other guys last year, there's going to be atmosphere there. So you're fortunate that it's going to start here, and they'll use Waino here if it's the Cardinals. But if I'm the Braves, I think I'd rather have the Cardinals. And if you look what they've done against the Cardinals the last couple of years, they've kicked the Cardinals' ass.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've really handled the Cardinals, and the Phillies. It just seems like they always give them fits, although they have played them really well lately. The Phillies just that and playing up there, the Phillies just seem to play them tough, man.
Yeah.
And Wheeler's as good as anybody when he's on. Nola too. So, and you got Bryce Harper. You got a lineup that's got the National League home run leader in Schwarber at the top of it. They're dangerous. So, but it's going to be interesting. The big thing for the Braves is they won it. They did what they had to do against all odds. Nobody picked them, when they were 10.5 back, when they were still 7 back in August, when they fell back, when they got right there and then fell back, that was when I really started to wonder, okay, now the Mets are really going to be hard to overtake.
Yeah. It just, for me, it says so much about the team to be able to be that far down, especially after they lost 4 or 5 from the Mets.
Yeah.
A lot of teams would lose a lot of confidence, and the team just, I thought it was cool. A lot of them were saying, like Minter, I heard say it. A lot of guys said this one feels the best of all the division titles they've got.
That's what they told us, man.
Because of the obstacle, because of how hard they had to fight to do it. And also just the mindset of we can do this is, that's got to be contagious through the team. And it obviously was, because they fought their asses off and came back and won that division against pretty much all odds.
Yeah, to a man, every guy I asked said this one was special or this one was the best. And Mentor said this is by far the most impressive of what we've done. He goes, if you guys look at it, we're going to look back at this, at what they did, coming back from 10.5 down against a team that won 101 games. That's what's incredible. Not a team that collapsed,
No, it's sweeping them like that too, to take the season series in Atlanta. I mean, it just sent a message for me that this team's not intimidated by anything.
Those last 6 games, the Mets only had to win 2 of them.
Yep.
They won 1 of them against the Braves. They only had to go 2-4 to win the division against the Braves, and they went 1-5. I mean, the Braves took it from them. As Mentor said, the Mets didn't collapse. We took it from them. They didn't choke on this. We took it from them.
Well, I mean, when's the last time a team got accused of collapsing while winning 101 games?
101 games. They had the same record as the Braves.
Yeah.
Braves did what they had to do in a year where there's no games in 163. They did what they had to do and won it, and now they're sitting pretty. The guys, man, they were celebrating in that clubhouse like it was the first one they won. I mean, you could tell how much relieved they were that they got it done, that they really accomplished. They knew they had really accomplished something, and for a lot of them, it was their first time, obviously. But even the ones that have been 5 times, Dansby and all those guys, they knew this was special, and they weren't going to act like it was no big deal. I mean, they celebrated.
Well, you get everybody's best after you win a World Series. There's a target on your back.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah, they didn't clinch at all. I mean, they didn't celebrate at all after clinching a playoff berth. It was like, that's nothing. We don't care about that. We knew we were going to get a playoff berth. That's not what we're aiming for. But they celebrated this division title, overcoming the Mets.
Yeah, I was interested who was going to start the next day. I thought they picked the perfect guy. Stevens just looks like a dude that could throw down about 40 Miller Lite and still be ready for a day game the next day.
And he did.
Yep.
And Yeah, we were talking about that. What was higher, his ERA or his blood alcohol level that day.
Yeah.
He looks like he's pitched a game or two in his life hungover.
Hungover. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
not still buzzing.
I was like, they need to start either Chavez or Stevens tomorrow.
I talked to Chavez that morning, man. Let's just say I was glad I was still wearing a mask. It was the only time I was glad that we still had to wear masks on in the clubhouse.
Celebrating in Miami too. Yeah, I think they stay out in Key Biscayne, which is a good thing because a lot of guys won't take that half-hour car ride to South Beach. But
yeah, they didn't go to South Beach. They were but they kept that bar open at the Ritz-Carlton till they were there till 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah, that's good. I was like, I think I don't like betting against the Braves, but I'm probably going to bet against them tomorrow after they clinch in Miami.
If they'd won that game,
they almost did. I mean, they came back a few times.
Yeah, and Ozuna had a home run, a double that game, 3 RBIs. He finished strong. He put himself into making at least them have to discuss it. Him making the postseason roster, which if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd have said there's no way he makes a postseason roster. But with what he did in the last 10 days or so, they're going to consider it, depending on the matchups too. A lot's going to depend on the matchups. And the Braves have done that for this whole run. They've changed things and made some moves that you're like, wow. But because of the matchups. I remember that first series against the Dodgers when they took a couple of the young starters, took a couple of the bullpen guys that had helped get them there, dropped them from the bullpen for that division series, put a couple of starters in because they wanted power arms against the Dodgers in that division series in 2018. Didn't help because the Dodgers were so much better. But
still.
It kind of set the tone for the moves they were going to make in coming years. Getting a lefty bat in against a certain lineup. They've made a lot of moves based on who they're going to play.
Well, it's watching Ozuna, it's like when he's locked in, you feel like there's nowhere to go. Like that ball he hit in Miami it felt like it was going to hit him in the belt. He pulled his hands in and kept it fair down the line. He just seems like a guy that, I don't know the mechanics of his swing, but when he gets his swing locked in, he has so much bat speed and power. I mean, I didn't see this coming either, but you definitely got to think about it because when he gets hot, he can carry a lineup.
The fact that he's like the last guy on the roster, if he makes it, that's pretty good. It says something about the Braves' depth.
Yeah.
Guy that led the majors in home runs and RBI, the National League in home runs and RBIs a couple of years ago in the short season. But anyway, asking Stitt who he wanted to face, Philly or St. Louis, he was candid after the thing. He goes, I don't care. It's postseason. He goes, both teams, either team's going to give you a fight, but he didn't try to rationalize it. He just said, we're going to be ready. This break, the Braves are going to get, because it's really unusual to have that lull. Yeah. Braves and Dodgers are going to have 5 days off. Braves are going to have, because they're going to have that Gwinnett group going, just like they did during the pandemic, where they had the taxi squad working out Gwinnett, and they call them the Stay Hot group. And they're going to have a bunch of pitchers there and several position players as well. So if they could have a rash of injuries, they could have anything happen, and they're going to be set as far as having somebody ready to take over that roster spot if there's an injury. They're going to use those guys in the interim to throw live BP. So the hitters, all the live BP they want, they're going to have pitchers that are ready to do it during this break. They had 2 days off. Snit told them stay away from the ballpark Thursday. If you want to come out Friday and throw whatever, that's fine. But I'd rather you not. But if you want to, that's fine. And then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they're going to work out. They're going to have live VP. Those guys from Gwinnett are going to throw. If Braves pitchers themselves want to throw, roster guys, if they want to throw live VP, they can too. So, but they're going to have plenty of not sim games, but live VP. So
you need that.
Yeah, they're going to face live pitching.
I think the biggest obstacles for relievers. Position players, it's so hard on their body that they really respond well to that day off or 2 days off.
Yeah.
They feel fresh. Starters are used to having their bullpen day and a couple down days. But for relief pitchers, I was telling Cam before we started, I hated off days. I'd come in after an off day and I'd throw like a 30-pitch bullpen and I'd throw it hard.
Yeah.
Trying to kind of break things up and loosen your body back up. I think for relievers, they should definitely – I would say as close to the series too, maybe a day before or 2 days before, try to throw some, even if it's just 10 pitches live with a hitter in the box. Because it's different throwing with a hitter in the box. It's one thing just to throw in the bullpen, different spacing, different setting, no hitter in there. A lot of pitchers kind of use the hitter as a target to aim off of.
Yeah.
So having that guy stand in the box makes a big difference. But yeah, I mean, you never get this amount of time off during the season. You get the All-Star break, that's it.
Yeah.
And you come back from the All-Star break, you still got, 2.5 months to clean up whatever mess you make.
Yeah, Mentor was saying he hates the All-Star break because you're in a groove, and he hates taking 3 days off during that. So, they were going to stay hot. These guys were not going to just sit around, and so I'm expecting them to come out ready in that first game. But we'll see. We'll see how it affects them, because it's obviously no kind of comparable to that they've had in the postseason in the past. The Braves have won more division titles. The division era started in '69. The Braves have won more division titles now than any other team. They've won 22. The Dodgers and the Yankees have won 20 apiece. And the 22 have come like in a 7-8 year period, something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, there's just that short lull from 13 to.
Yeah. But they have really had a divisional dynasty. I mean, it started in the West, obviously, but then they moved over to the East and started the run they've been on. But they've kind of owned the division. It hasn't resulted in a whole lot of World Series, but, they've won 2, which is, winning that second one kind of got the monkey off their backs as far as that's concerned. But they got, I would have looked at the history and thought, coming in the season, the odds were not in their favor, especially with the Dodgers, as powerful as they've been all season. But given the injuries that the Dodgers have had, their starting pitching being what it is, I think the Braves have got a legit good shot to repeat as World Series champion. And if they accomplish that, that hasn't been done since 2000, man, when the Yankees won it, 98, 99, 2000, 3 in a row. Nobody has repeated since then. That's how difficult it is to win the World Series.
Were stacked.
Yeah. But that's how difficult it is to win the World Series, man. I mean, it is hard to do in a 162-game season because you got to have a lot of luck. You got to be deep. You got to avoid major injuries, that being the luck. So it takes a lot, man. And you got to keep the team on the same page, and that's where having a great chemistry really has been just not just helpful for the Braves, but absolutely critical for the Braves.
Oh yeah, I don't think Snit will ever get the credit he deserves. But for me, being 10 games back in the division and coming back and winning it, I know he's got a great team, but to just like the mindset in the clubhouse that he creates, the environment he creates being a manager, never putting too much pressure on the guys, always believing in them, just steady Eddie, every day. Not a lot of managers, and it's impossible to compare because you never get to try it with 2 different managers, but not a lot of managers are managing a team down 10 games and coming back like that the year after you win a World Series.
Yeah. And then you get off to the World Series hangover start, 23 and 27, whatever you want to call it, whatever the reason. But that was a bad start. And at that point, nobody would have said they believe the Braves are going to win the World Series. When they were 23 and 27 at the end of May, it just did not look in the cards because the Mets were off to a huge start. 10.5 game lead at the end of May. I mean, nobody would have thought the Braves were going to do it. And Snit meets with them on June 1st in the morning for the series finale at Arizona. Well, I've talked about it by now. But didn't yell, didn't throw over the food spread, just said, look, you're the Atlanta Braves. You're the defending World Series champions who need to start playing like it because we're not. It's not that you're not trying hard. It's not like you're playing hard, but you're doing stupid. You're playing stupid baseball. You're not playing smart. Yeah, you're running yourselves out of innings. You're doing stupid things. You're not having a good approach at the plate. You're trying. It's not that you're not playing hard. You're just not playing smart. And they kind of said, we all knew it. But as Dansby said, sometimes it takes somebody to tell you that and remind you of that. And then you all go, he's right. And you kind of get on the same page, Dan, and go, okay, let's start from this day playing better baseball. And they really did. It was noticeable like that. They went from running themselves out of a couple of innings in that really bad loss at Arizona to starting that day of series finale when they began a 14-game winning streak, which turned their season around completely. Different team. And then you had Harris in center field. That streak started like his 4th game up, and he was just huge. And Strider moving over from the bullpen to rotation because they were like 1 and 10 from the 5th spot in the rotation before he moved over there. And that just changed everything when he moved over there as far as having 5 guys locked in rest of the year. Didn't have to keep moving guys up from the minors like he did a year before. So just a lot of things, but they ended up getting on the same page, and they were relentless chasing the Mets from that point. The Mets had to feel the whole season like, my God, these guys don't lose, man.
Yeah. Well, that's what we talked about a lot was, what's more frustrating is, trying to chase a team down that won't lose.
Yeah.
Or this team that just will not stop nipping at your heels.
Right.
And
you coming up slowly on you.
Just creeping on you. Just can't shake them. And you could see that for me, I could tell game 1 of that Mets series, I could see their players feeling the pressure. You could see them throwing their bats, yelling fuck, you could see the pressure they were feeling. I could see it on the field for the first time. And the Braves look calm. Like we've been here before. We played in these big series. And that was kind of my, that was what I wanted to see as September kind of developed was how were the Mets going to handle the pressure of being a game or 2 up and having to play these guys. And they hadn't, a lot of those guys haven't been in the playoffs yet. And they hadn't played in a series that big. And that series had to feel like the playoffs. I bet it was loud.
Oh, my God. It was like the World Series in there. It was so loud.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see how DeGrom did because he'd obviously had three starts where he was very mediocre at best. And I wanted to see if he could just flip the switch like everybody seemed to think he would when it mattered, and he didn't. So, I mean, this is a guy that's only made 4 postseason starts, and he's just obviously the blister or whatever it's been has affected him because he's got a 6 ERA in his last 4 starts. And without him out there putting up zeros and just dominating, that team behind him didn't have the same feel because I know they feel like they're unbeatable when he's on the mound, and they should. And he's got no hit stuff going because they feel like all we need to do is score a couple of runs.
And that's so much less pressure. We just got to squeeze a couple across versus shit. He just gave up back-to-back homers.
Yeah,
he might not have it today. We've got to get going. Pressure's everything in baseball.
Yeah, when the Braves hit those 2 homers off of him, it's like, okay, we know this momentum has completely shifted now to the Braves. And they're at home, and this place is packed, and it's going to be packed for all 3 of these games. And it's like, it just had the whole thing felt like it shifted then. Then it was like, okay, now the Braves are the favorites, man.
Yeah, crowd makes such a difference too. Like if you come into a game like that and you're a relief pitcher and you throw ball 1 and the stadium explodes.
Yeah.
That just amplifies the feeling of, shit, I'm behind in the count. Everything that doesn't go your way, when the crowd gets loud, it's impossible to ignore. All right, things aren't going my way right now. And that's just a separate test that until you've been in those environments, staying calm in them and keeping your same thought process, the crowd can take you out of that.
Yeah. And it wasn't like the year before when Wash had his great quote about, told me it was asses and elbows. They hung around. Those teams let us hang around. Nobody would pull away. And once we passed them, it was asses and elbows. They weren't going to catch us after that. That's on T-shirts, by the way. Some players wear it.
Is it?
Yeah, it's funny. I saw Ozzy wearing one the other day. It said elbows on the back of it. But this year, like Snit said, what made this one so gratifying was there wasn't a team that was trying to give it to them. There was a team that was trying to run away with it. The Mets were playing good baseball and trying to run away with it, and the Braves wouldn't let them. The Braves are going to all right, we'll play better baseball then. The Braves had the best record in the majors since June 1. And remember, the Dodgers won 111 games this year. And the Braves had the best record by a half game over the Dodgers since June 1. I got to check that again. And maybe that next to last game changed that. But they did. After winning their 100th game and clinching that night, they passed the Dodgers as the best record since June 1.
That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy when you consider they were 23 and 27 before that.
Yeah, that was before they got 2 heavy hitters. So they, Strider going in the rotation and Harris getting called up. I mean, that changed the whole team.
Yeah. And then you had guys that just picked up the slack. You never had the lineup really going as one like you did last year when they just hammered teams. They just beat the hell out of teams last year. They scored 7-8 runs. This year it was more like you had 3, maybe 4 guys going at once, but you always had a couple of guys slumping.
Yeah.
And that made it even more impressive because it was everybody. It was somebody different every night, but they had to have good pitching. They had to have all facets of the game going this year to pull this off, and they really did. I mean, they had the pitching. The starting pitching was so strong during all their good streaks. The starting pitching was outstanding. And the bullpen overcame some injuries, some guys that didn't match last year. Matzek's not nearly the pitcher he was a year ago when he was such a key part, but they had other guys step up. And
Iglesias has been huge.
Huge. Chavez, getting him back was huge. McHugh all year. To me, he's the unsung hero.
Yeah.
Arguably the most valuable member of the pen, even if his numbers didn't have the strikeouts some other guys do. But he's been huge for that bullpen, man. All year.
Yeah,
Dylan Lee.
He offers Dylan Lee. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't get a lot of love.
No.
He's pretty good.
I was asking Mentor about Dylan Lee, man. I mean, he's a rookie. He's a rookie, and he stepped up. And he goes, he doesn't have that super sexy stuff. He goes, but I love watching that guy pitch. He just goes out there, throws strikes, says, here it is, hit it if you want to hit it.
Yeah.
But he's just
aggressive.
Yeah, he's just fearless out there. Even though he doesn't throw 98, he goes out there and he's a pitcher, man.
Yeah, it's crazy what, it's so much of it's confidence, but it's crazy what the hitters feel when you just attack them. Like you got a lefty coming in, he's throwing 91, 92. Hitters go up, they think they're going to do damage, and you pump a first pitch fastball in on the black. They're like, shit, this guy's he's not afraid of me. And that's kind of how he pitches. He attacks them. Now that you're down 0-1, he's got a good breaking ball. He's got a really good slider, and he pitches from there. But for me, he was really impressive. He just doesn't, like you said, he doesn't do it in a sexy way where he comes in throwing 99 and you're going to see the replay of it. He's not fist pumping and jumping around after a big situation. He just walks off zero emotion, which for me, I always thought a lot of times when guys are doing the crazy fist pumping and stuff, especially when I did, it was when I was doubting myself and I'm like, shit, I got out of it. And then you're fist pumping. He comes in so confident. He just makes pitches and walks off the mound.
Yeah.
Cool to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just emotionless. Whether he's in trouble or he's doing something great, he hardly ever shows any emotion. Yeah, and you're not going to see the pitching ninja do the overlay on his stuff.
No, it's pretty boring.
Yeah, it's pretty boring. He's just effective. And every bullpen's got to have guys like that, man. And he's that guy. Yep. He and McHugh obviously just can spin the hell out of it.
He can spin it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and he's not intimidated either.
Hitters must see him walk out there and go, if they don't know him, but by now his reputation is established. They know what he's going to spin the ball. But just physically, he's the least imposing pitcher in the major leagues, man. Yeah. This guy's 170 pounds, 6'1", just looks like, okay, what? There's nothing there. Skinny arms, noodle arms.
Built like a substitute teacher.
Yeah, and then he gets on the mound. It's like, holy shit, dude. Fearless and spins the ball, and he's so smart. He's so smart. He can outthink any hitter.
Yeah, and he's the kind of smart that you want to be. Like we always say in baseball, you either want to be a dumbass that doesn't, fully understand the risk reward of everything going on and can just stay yourself, or you want to be so smart that you can talk yourself into a good state of mind. And he seems like that for me. Like he knows if he makes a good pitch, he's going to get out of it.
Yeah.
He knows what his strengths are. He comes in calm. I think, with his spin, I just, you can have seen it a month ago or 2 weeks ago, but it's one of those pitches. The way he's able to spin the ball in the break is something that it probably sneaks up on hitters and surprises them every time, just how much the ball moves and how tight it is.
Because he's not throwing it that hard, man. And it's just like, wow, how does he do this? But then you look at the spin rates and the location. I mean, he doesn't miss much at all.
That slider. He puts it right where it needs to.
Yeah, and he can have one bad outing. Once in a while, he'll have one. And he's so confident, and he's done it so much now, and he's overcome so many obstacles. This is a guy like Jackson Stevens that pitched down in Venezuela in the winter ball. I mean, he paid his dues to get here.
Yeah.
And now he's so established. He's pitched on championship teams, been to the World Series before with other teams. And he comes in and he's like, he doesn't get affected by a bad outing or whatever, or a team slumping or whatever. He's just one of those perfect guys that fits into that club, into that bullpen, which the bullpen for years, we've talked about this last year. They had great chemistry, and then they maintained that even with like Luke Jackson injured, and even with losing Will Smith was a huge part of that chemistry wise with him leaving. And they've just been able to pump other guys in there and maintain it. And Darren O'Day, another integral part of the chemistry, like the leader of that bullpen, him being hurt most of the year. And they still found a way to keep it going, that vibe going. And Chavez was a big part of that. And then they were smart enough to, during a couple of critical road trips, took Luke Jackson on the road, even though he's out with Tommy John, which they never do. If a guy can't go is no chance he's going to come back during that series, they don't normally take him. It's team policy. They took him because of that, just because of the vibe. And they've kept Darren O'Day there the whole time. He's not coming back this year, but he's there every day in uniform, working out, going out in the bullpen. So
you
they
can really
know
pass the torch with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you set the tone. Here's how we behave down here. Here's how we think. Kind of like what happened with Freddie passing it kind of on to Dansby. You're always worried about losing too many of these guys that pass that, kind of team mentality on. But once you're around it enough, Minter's got that in him now. He knows how to think. He knows what works. He knows how to be. And you pass that on. And it's crazy how you can walk into some teams or bullpens or situations and, everybody's a turd. And you start thinking like a turd. But if you're around guys that have that strong mindset, they have a bad game, you see them out there working the next day, they're acting the same. You kind of look at them like, oh, shit, that guy's got 6 years and maybe I should act like that. You're around guys that act like turds and they're pouting the next day and they're down and they're talking about their bad outing and, why'd the manager bring me in this situation? I shouldn't have to pitch. That shit is so contagious and it can go either way. But I think what this team has is just they've had enough guys each year that are like repeat guys that mindset's just able to stay. And it's why it's a team where you see a guy like Chavez goes to the Angels, struggles, comes back. He's at home now. He's comfortable. He's confident, and confidence is everything.
And I will gladly concede that once again I was wrong in saying that Snit needed to change closers in mid-September, because once again his closer it's exactly he started it a little bit earlier than Will Smith did last year. Will was like the last week of the regular season, and Kenley started a couple weeks ago. He had that outing where he loaded the bases against the Mets, but got out of it. But other than that, this guy has been almost perfect. Going back to that Giants series on the road, going back to the end of that road trip, he blew the save in Seattle. Huge game in that game that we thought, oh, this was going to cost him. That was a game they had to win. When they came back in the ninth inning, then he blows it, and you're like, oh,
the wins that just give you so much momentum too.
Right. And I thought that's when I'm like, they can't afford to keep him in the spot because he's choking in these huge games. And I was dead wrong. I mean, he's just responded so huge since then. Since that game, his last 11 games, Kenley Jansen, 11 appearances, 11 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 16 strikeouts, an 0.82 ERA, 132 opponents batting average, 214 opponents on base percentage, 132 opponents slugging, and 346 opponents OPS. He's been
his cutter looks entirely different now. I mean, it looks so much sharper. If you go back to that Seattle series, he got beat on a sinker and a curveball. And I was watching that like, wow, he had his cutters. He has no confidence in his cutter right now if he's willing to get beat on those 2 pitches, right? And for whatever reason, he, something mechanical he had to fix. And that's why it's so important to let guys work through it so he can find the cutter and test it in a game. And, I just think about if Snit yanks him with the bases loaded against the Mets.
Yeah.
If he yanks him, which a lot of managers would be tempted to do. Yeah. He sticks with his guy. And it's so hard because if he doesn't yank him, Snit's an idiot. What's he doing? Obviously, we all saw this coming. But he doesn't get to find out that he got his cutter back.
Yeah.
He doesn't get to find out that what he's doing is working and he's locked in. And I mean, if you've watched the swings I always watch are when he throws a cutter right down the middle to a righty and they swing under it 5 inches.
Yeah.
That's when his movement is just locked in. And he's barely been throwing those other pitches now because he's got his cutter back. But he lost it and he didn't know what to do for, a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what separates to me. That's what separates a really special manager from a good manager that makes the right moves. Follows the analytics, goes by his gut sometimes, whatever. To have the balls that Snit does and the loyalty, he's got huge balls.
He has balls.
And he sticks because he doesn't give a shit what people say. He's like, I'm riding with this guy, and he doesn't even hesitate, He leaves him in there, and if that one pitch, that game could have been over. The bases are loaded, and it's like, why did you leave him in there? But Snit's like, I'm sticking with my guy.
You're playing the Cardinals today, or Phillies. You're playing or in the wild card game.
Instead, instead of losing Kenley that day, which he probably would have, because when the Dodgers moved him out of that closer role for the postseason, he didn't really end up finishing the World Series. He didn't, and they won it, but he was, for all intents and purposes, done there, and then he lost the closer job there again when he blew 3 saves in the middle of the season last year, I think it was. But for a while he lost it. But Snit has stuck with him through the whole thing, and right now Kenley's pitching like almost peak Kenley, not 98-mile-an-hour cutters.
No, it's the movement.
Nasty. Yeah.
It's all about the life on that cutter. When that thing's locked in, he's hiding the ball and he gets the extension he gets. The movement's so late. I remember asking Adrian Beltre my first season with Seattle. I was talking to him and Raul Ibanez, and they were talking about how nasty Mariano Rivera is.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing Mariano. He's getting into his 30s, and he's not throwing 98. He's throwing 93, and guys just can't hit this pitch. And I said to him, I was like, why don't you just swing where it's going to be? He's throwing a cutter. Just swing off to the right, and on top of it a little bit. And they were like, your eyes just can't track it. Like he's like, he's like, the timing of when that ball moves and when you go to swing is perfectly synced up to where we can't just your eyes won't let you assume where the ball is going to be. You have to track it, but it's too deep when it moves to track it. And that's what I see with Kenley a lot of times. Is like I saw him throw a cutter right down the middle to Canna, and Canna swings under it by this much, 2-3 inches. His eyes just can't track what that ball is going to do. And I think with Kenley's extension, how far he's able to reach out, that break just happens late enough that it's a combo for hitters that they just can't, their eyes can't track the ball and put the barrel on it.
Yeah. So he sticks with him, as you pointed out at the time when I was saying they needed to change closers. But the problem is if you change closers, Kenley's one of your high leverage guys. You lose one of your high leverage guys basically because you can't stick him in the 7th inning and just know that he's going to pitch well there. This is a guy that he's done this for over a decade. Pitch the closer. That's what he does. And he's so comfortable there.
You can't get him up, sit him down, bring him in for a hitter one day, have him go an inning the next. It closer rolls. It's pretty comfy.
So you basically lose one of your 4 or 5 high leverage guys if you make that move. You lose Kenley basically. You're done with him. And then you're juggling between is Iglesias the closer now, or is it matchups, him and Mentor? Iglesias as a closer this year with the Angels was not that good. He had a couple times where he inherited 3 runners and let them all in.
Yep.
Iglesias as a setup guy this year with that pressure off of him comes over here. He's just one of the high leverage guys, but a setup guy has excelled, has thrived.
Oh, he's been unreal. He doesn't miss a glove.
And I'm not saying that's his role going forward because I'm sure he's going to be the closer, but this has been perfect for him. And now Snitz loves being able to have and it's been a slowly evolution over the season, but now he's got that bullpen exactly where it was going into last year, where he's got his scripted almost 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, or 7th, 8th, 9th inning if the pitch starter can go 6. But if the starter only goes 5, which happens a lot in the postseason, they're okay.
Yep.
With McHugh, Iglesias, Mentor, Kenley.
You can use guys for an inning in the 3rd in the postseason. You can extend them a little bit. It's going to be harder without the off days.
Right.
But you can do that.
And you've got McHugh and Mentor can both go. McHugh especially can go more than 1 inning. Then you got Dylan Lee you can stick in there at any time. You got Jackson Stevens can eat a couple innings if you need him. So they're and we didn't even mention Matzek because he hasn't been nearly what he was last year. He's just walking too many guys.
Yeah, he's throwing 93, 94 too.
Right.
He's not throwing 99.
Right, exactly. And he's not humped it up as the game's gotten bigger. So he got, Matzek laid it all out there last year. That arm, he pitched a hell of a lot of high-pressure innings last year. Whatever he does going forward, he is never going to be less than a postseason hero for the Braves. What he did last postseason, and he might be great again next year. This might have just been a year where he's got to get his arm shot from last year,
it's crazy. You pitch like that, you throw. He's throwing every single day, it feels like, in the postseason last year. And you do that, not only are you extending your season, or not only are you pitching that much, that often, with that much stress, and bringing that much, and you extend your season an extra month. He hadn't been in the playoffs before.
No, this is a guy that was out of baseball, out of the major for 2 or 3 years. And he was. And he came up huge emotionally, a game after game after game. I mean, the biggest innings the Braves had last postseason, Matzik had like half of them, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is almost like okay, you get a mulligan on this year. But in the meantime, we got these other guys, and Snit hasn't. He gave him every opportunity to reestablish himself after the injury. That was the other thing. He just hadn't been the same after coming back from that injury, you know, the impingement. We're probably going to find out after the postseason's over that it was still bothering him, the impingement in there. So, but Snit gave him every opportunity to reestablish that. But at a certain point, Snit made that decision without saying so, stopped using Matzik in those high and got, because he's like, now I got to establish my bullpen going into these huge games against the Mets in a postseason. I got to get my guys in order, and he's got them in order.
So, well, they talked about that circle of trust, right? I heard AA talking about that, and it's like the thing I admire is it takes some managers like 2 bad games and you're out of the circle of trust.
Right.
That adds so much pressure as a reliever. It's like I come into a game, if I give one up here, I might not pitch for a week.
Right.
Then you don't pitch for a week. You're sitting on a bad outing for a week. You come in that next one, your confidence is down. I'm the guy that sucks now.
Yeah.
For Snit, his circle of trust, I mean, you got to grind to get your way out of that thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he sticks with his guys. And like we talked about, it's not easy because it's funny to me, you know, people will criticize Snit and just think he's a moron for a move he makes with the bullpen.
Right.
But he's not thinking about just today. He's thinking about how big this guy is for me, you know, in September, in the postseason. And if I can get him back, how much more valuable he is for that run than maybe we lose today. But he's got to get his answers, and he gives guys every chance to work their way out of it. And it's crazy what one good game will do. You know, if you're kind of scuffling as a reliever and you get brought in, Bobby Cox was the king of this. Anytime I had a bad game, Bobby brought me in the next day against the 9-hole lefty with 2 outs and a runner on first. You just flip some sliders, strike him out, and you're like, okay, I'm back. I figured it out. You didn't figure shit out. He just puts you in a sit. He just threw you an alley-oop. You know, you're in this layup position of, I have to suck for anything to go wrong. All you got to do is come into that game to be okay.
Yeah.
Now your confidence is back. Now whenever you pitch again, you're coming off a good outing, and you're confident. If Bobby would have taken me and not pitched me for a week after every bad game I had, I probably would have had a 3-year career. But that confidence he showed in me, and then put me in a situation to succeed the next time out. You wind up, you're always sitting on good outings. You know, mentally that's so much better for you than struggling, yanked, and not pitching again. And you can feel that, you know, when your situation comes up the next day and you're like, oh, this is all me. That's what he uses me for. And the phone doesn't ring, or the guy that just called up from AAA gets the shot that quick. It's like, when a manager can lose trust in you that quick, you can lose confidence in yourself just as fast. And
Snit learned everything he learned about managing at Bobby's knee. I mean, that's his mentor. So the big pieces that we talk about, sure, the game's changed, and Snit uses so much more analytics because that's part of the game now. Bobby would have just like, get that fucking shit out of here. Snit understands that's part of, you got to do it. But the overall approach to managing the people part of it, which is the most important part.
It's everything.
He got all that from Bobby. So, and I think that's what separates. Sure, there are smarter managers, analytically smarter, that know more, than Snit, but there are no more street smart managers than Snit. What he's learned from 4.5 decades in every level of the minor leagues, every type of ball player, every type of person. He knows every type of person and how to deal with them. And
the front office lets him do it. And
that's the other part of that is you got to have that attitude, which either you got to have so much gravitas as a manager that you're not going to get fired, you know, like a Joe Madden during his peak years or whatever, or Bobby, obviously. And there's Bochy, you know, during you could so much gravitas, Leland, that you can do whatever the hell you want and have a bad stretch. It doesn't matter because you're the guy. You know, they're going to fire the GM before they fire you. Or in Snit's case, he acquired that, but it was more also he came in with that, I don't give a shit. If they fire me tomorrow, I'm ready to retire or go home. I love this. I'm a lifer. I'll go back to AAA, whatever they want me to do in the organization, or I'll walk away. It doesn't matter. That's how he came into it. Wanting to win badly because he's never experienced it as a manager. But at the same time, not beholden to anybody and not willing to do what the fans want him to do, or what, he's not worried about being criticized.
He doesn't manage to answer questions.
He doesn't give a shit.
No, he doesn't. And
he
you could tell
what we think. He doesn't care what the fans think. He doesn't care what we're going to ask him afterwards, because he's like, I don't have time to worry about that. I'm worried about this team and my guys, and I know what they need from me. That's all he cares about.
You see it, like I saw Aaron Boone slamming on the table, get, like really frustrated. That's pressure created outside the clubhouse.
Right. And
there's a lot of people players too, that say, I don't read the papers, I don't pay attention to any of that. I've never believed anybody more when they say they don't give a shit what's being said outside the clubhouse than Sticker.
He
doesn't care.
It's like Bobby. Yeah. Bobby, you could write anything about him, say, and next day you came in, hey, no idea what you wrote about him. Snit, more so.
Yeah,
and there's more written now. There's Twitter, and Snit doesn't care. I don't think he sees it. His wife might bring it to attention, but he doesn't
see it. He doesn't care.
He doesn't care, man.
He's
so locked into his team. It's his team, and it's his grandkids, and it's his wife, and pretty much nothing else matters, man.
And that's the only way you'd be able to manage the way he does and do. Some of the moves. Even my last year, I was playing for him. He'd bring me into situations. I was like, "What's this dude doing?"
Yeah, Odorizzi. Are you kidding me? Nobody would have picked Odorizzi to start that game. We're like, really? When he said it, when he said it, I mumbled. We're talking to him, and I mumbled to Justin Toscano. He'd tell you, I went, "What the?" I was like that while Snit was still talking. I thought, "What are you doing? If he goes out and shits the bed, you're going to look like." And
he doesn't care how he looks.
He knew. He had a feeling.
Yep.
And Odorizzi responded with his best start since August.
And why? How about that confidence a manager puts in you after watching you struggle?
Yeah.
I've seen some of Odorizzi's interviews. You could tell he's searching and not. You could see it in his eyes, like
cracking,
how frustrated he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's crushed. Manager says, "You got this." Fuck it, maybe I do.
Yeah.
Let me just go pitch my ass off. Whatever happens, happens. But that's what I talk about, of that mindset being contagious one way or the other. You have managers that you have one bad game, you walk by him in the hallway the next day. I had a manager, he'd duck into a broom closet not to look at you and not to talk to you. And you could see him looking for a different route to go. And you guys were coming down a long hallway.
Yeah.
Oh shit, I forgot something. Walk back to his office. You can read that as a player. You can see, there was a manager I played for that he would go out in the outfield, and he did it for the media to see, but he'd go out in the outfield and talk to all the players.
Yeah.
It was always on camera pregame. There he was out there talking to the right fielder, left fielder. He'd come out to the right field, you'd be shagging in right center. He'd be talking to second baseman a minute, work his way out to right field. And it's like, all right, the natural progression here is around the outfield and back to the infield. He'd duck in, talk to the shortstop, and then go back out to center field just so he didn't have to talk to you.
That's funny, man.
It just reinforces that you're sucking right now.
Right. Now, having said all that, if Snit is the guy he is, and he doesn't have the players that he does, this doesn't work.
Right.
But they got good players, man.
Yeah.
And they got good guys that are good guys, and they have melded together, and they've responded. Because if they had a couple of pricks on this team that Snit says doesn't make certain moves or whatever, they'd be rolling their eyes too, going, "What the hell's he doing?" They don't. They believe in him. He believes in them. They got the right players for this manager, and the right coaches too. We've talked about that. They got a great coaching staff, man. Cranny's got a good feel for his pitchers. Walt Weiss is great in the bench. Wash is invaluable. Other teams have totally screwed the pooch not hiring Wash to manage, but the Braves are fortunate they have it. Same thing with Walt Weiss, man. Somebody should have hired him to manage after he left Colorado. They didn't, and the Braves have benefited from it. They've had all these minds that should be managing teams are in there with Snit, and Snit delegates to them and lets them coach.
Yep.
He doesn't Bigfoot them. He lets them coach. He knows they've been there. They played and all that. Snit didn't in the majors, and he understands that. And he said, they're rock stars. He calls his coaches rock stars. Totally appreciates it.
That was the first thing Snit said that year he took over was, he led off with, a couple things, and then he said, "I'll never forget how hard this game is." It's like, I didn't make it.
Yeah. I'm
never going to look at you guys and expect you to do, to be perfect, like the game's easy.
Yeah.
I'll never forget how hard it is. And I think that's one thing that players really lose trust or confidence, or it won't even like a manager if they feel like they're talking like the game is easy. Why didn't you just hit it the other way? Or why didn't you just do that? I mean, you don't lose that's the fastest way to lose your players is to talk about them and treat them like what they're doing. They should just be able to do every time. And it's easy. You know, you make an error in the outfield or something. He's great at that. They're really lucky, the entire combination of, you know, from front office down, how this thing's working.
Yeah. And that's why we've talked about it. That's why I do everything I could to not disrupt it, you know.
No.
And we thought when they lost Freddie, they really made a mistake. They survived that because they've got so many other good guys. But I really think that Dansby, and maybe I'll be proven wrong if he doesn't resign, but I really think he's such an important part of this, man.
Well, how he goes about his business, he backs it up too.
Yeah, his personality. His personality really is a good fit. He doesn't rub people the wrong way at all. You know, he's kind of a I mean, you might call him a goody two shoes or whatever back in the day, you know, kind of guy. You know, he's like almost too perfect. Yeah, you know, because I mean, he's not going to get in trouble or anything. I mean, the guy doesn't even like cuss. You know, he's like a legit Christian and all that. You know,
it's just how he treats people. You know, it's how you treat people.
He's such a good guy. You know, and he's like impossibly good looking. So the other guys must look at him and go, okay, what's this guy, man? You know, but he doesn't rub anybody the wrong way because he doesn't put it in anybody's face, you know, just does his thing. And then he steps up and hits a huge home run. It's like, you know,
that's how I need to be. You know, you take that from him.
And he doesn't show off afterwards. He doesn't talk about it afterwards. He still deflects to other guys on the team and everything. Says I was lucky to run. So I just think that they've got a really good mix of guys, and man, the window's there for them to make some history.
Yeah,
it really is. And we didn't even talk about the huge part of this, Strider. There's a good chance, and for Alex to concede, there's a good chance, and Snit to say, you know, he feels a lot better, tells me there's almost it's much more likely than not he's going to be ready for the LDS the division series. Because
especially being able to push him back, you know, not have him start 2 or 3. You could even count on him in game 4.
Yeah, right. And not needing him for wild card series to get past that, you know, so that was big. And not needing those other 2 guys ahead of him. So yeah, they can push him back, give him extra days, because he just threw for the first time a few days ago. Flat ground. Felt really good. So probably today, I would think he's throwing off the mound.
Throw off the mound, and he'll need to get some kind of sim game in and face hitters where your effort level just naturally jumps up against hitters. He'll need to see a hitter in the box, but I mean, they have time.
Yeah. So if he throws a couple of live BPs and they don't use him till the 3rd game, there's 2 games. There's Tuesday, Wednesday, then travel day. It wouldn't need him till Friday if they pitch him in game Friday or Saturday if they waited till game 4. So that's another week and a half.
Yeah, that's enough time. You know, it's one thing when it's early in the season or spring training, you have those injuries, but you get in later in the year and you've been throwing for 9 months already, it comes back pretty quick. It might turn out to be a good thing for his arm too.
Might be, man, because he was up to 135 innings or whatever and threw 95 last year. So I think if he has time to throw a couple of live Bs, it's like Kyle told me, man, that would be huge for the team if he comes back. And Kyle said, because I think he's the kind of guy that's going to really thrive in a postseason. Like, I think you're right.
Yeah.
He's shown already that he's not affected by anything as far as pitching in a big environment, big game. I mean, facing top hitters, and nothing has faced him. Same thing for Michael Harris, obviously. I mean, that series against the Mets, he's out there coming in, charging, being so aggressive, just like always. Yep. I think he's going to be fine. I like the move the other day, Snit, after pushing him, you know, moving him slowly up. He's hitting 3rd or whatever. I like that Snit dropped him back to the bottom of the order against a tough lefty. He had seen him struggle. He said that's the one thing he struggled at all. Sinker ball or lefty. And they had a couple of them back-to-back in Miami, so he moved him down to the bottom of the order again. I like that he did that to him.
That's the toughest. You know, I made a living off throwing those sinkers into lefties, but it's just not something you build your bat path on. You know, growing up, you're seeing the ball coming into you, but it's, you know, it's like a righty slider basically, but it's starting from the far left side of the mound. So that's one of the toughest things for lefties to really get used to hitting. But I mean, with Harris, he was getting big hits as soon as he got called up.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, you see those things in guys, and when you're seeing guys that are naturally just clutch and getting big hits, and I mean, some of them were just like the home run he hit in Seattle. It's like, there's no chance you're doing anything here. Homer, you know, take the lead. He's just kind of got that gene, it seems like, where there's no situation too big for him.
Yeah. Kind of like Andrew when he came up and hit 2 home runs in his first World Series game.
Yeah.
He just reminds me so much of Andrew in so many ways. I mean, their personalities are really different, but maybe Andrew was more like that when he was young. But as far as playing, just that nothing affects him. Both sides of the ball. I mean, just going all out for every ball, never being scared to die for anything.
Yeah.
Just stepping up, man. We got the clutch gene that not many guys have.
Nope.
So
people think it's fake, but it's a real thing.
So yeah, we're talking about Minter after that game the other day said about this what separated this, because he brought it up himself. We didn't ask him where this one ranked. He brought it up. He said, I'm lucky to have been a part of a lot of special seasons, and this is by far my favorite because I know how hard it is to win. And what we did this year was by far the most impressive thing we've done. This is the guy that was part of that bullpen that won the World Series last year.
Yeah.
And he said,
10 games back is crazy.
Yeah. Against the 101 win team.
Yeah. I think those things feel the best. It's like when everybody's doubting you or there's no chance or you're not supposed to win it. Like that game, Brooks Conrad hit that walk-off grand slam.
Yeah.
Those kind of things that happen, they feel better than just, if you're in the game the whole way and you get a 2-run shot down 1.
Right.
Coming back from 8. I still remember that game, but same thing, coming back from 10 back in the division, it's like you got to have so much confidence and almost be a little crazy to even believe you can pull it off. And then when it happens, it's got to feel amazing.
Snit said they're all special. They're all hard because this is right up there because there's a team that wanted to run away with it this year.
Yeah.
This was a heck of a race. He said he turned to Sal late in the game the other day against the Mets. Or I'm sorry, against the Marlins, the one where they clinched. And he said to Sal, he said, good God, we won 100 games and we're sitting here. My guts are turning and we've got another 2-1 game.
I know.
He said, no, there were no collapses this year. He said it was really 2 good teams that battled it out till the end, kind of like what we thought going in. He said the Mets have got a great club. We have a great club. And it wasn't anything but an exciting pennant race.
It was. That was a fun year to watch.
Yeah, Dansby said, because Dansby, it was like the happiest I've seen in post game. Dansby said, why are you so excited? Compared, I mean, it's like he won the World Series. He goes, because how good we played. He goes, if you extrapolate that out to 162 ever since June 1, I mean, it's like historic. He said, it's unbelievable just how good we played. That's why I hate all the talk about the division and collapse and this and that. I think we just played so incredibly well for the last 4 months that I think we deserve a little bit of the credit in how well we played.
All of it. There's no, I don't put any blame. I mean, I guess you could say the Mets had that series in their hands where they only had to win one and they got swept, but they swept them. You know what I mean? DeGrom and Scherzer. We were talking about that before the series, like shit.
He's having a great year.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at it like you can't possibly sweep the Mets with Scherzer and DeGrom going.
I love what we asked Snit about Odorizzi, because Odorizzi was like so happy afterwards because I'm so glad I pitched like myself finally, and helped us win it. And Snit said, he said, unbelievable. He said he did great. He said Cranny told him after the 5th inning, he goes, dude, you could still pitch. See, you're a good pitcher. I know. I'm happy for him. I'm so happy he got that last out in the 5th to get the win. See, that's Snit right there thinking too. He gets that last out in the 5th inning and guy gets the decision. And Snit's talking about that after they clinched the division.
Talking about people.
Yeah, he's talking about Odorizzi, a guy they picked up at the trade deadline who's kind of stunk about for most of the time for them. And he's talking about him in a post-game locker room after clinching.
I mean, there's not many worse feelings than continuing to go out there and suck when you're better than that. Can't figure out what's going on. The day you feel good, you give up a bunch of lucky hits and then you make one bad pitch and give up a homer. Like when things just are not going your way like that. And like I said, I could see it in some of his interviews. Hey, this dude, he was lost, searching for answers, no confidence. And then you get to pitch in that game, the biggest game he's going to pitch this year, and pitch like that. It's like all is forgiven. You can actually celebrate that night and feel good. Like I played a part in this.
Right.
Instead of just being the dude that came over and sucked and watched everybody else have fun.
like instead of sitting back watching, going, they won despite me, not with me, not because of me.
God, I got a World Series ring from the Mets when runner up, but
Yeah,
that thing means nothing to me compared to like, I have a piece of shit California League championship ring. It's probably like an $80 ring that we got for that thing.
Right. And Odorizzi would have been like that if he'd not
he would
done
have felt
anything.
like that. But now pitching that game, that ring's always going to mean something to him if he gets one.
So Dansby's got him one at bat the next day. It's the only time they've even done this, kind of a gimmicky thing to get him to get, because he not only started, but he played all but like 3 innings the entire year.
Yeah.
So Snit gave him 1AB. He wanted him in there because he knows how important that's going to be long. When you look at it 20 years from now, that dark and Baseball Reference is going to, in cursive dark, it's going to be 162 because he led the majors and not just played all of them, but started all of them. He's the only guy in the majors this year that started every game. And Olson is the only other guy, I think, that played in all 162. Olson ended up playing that whole game
one time, right?
Oh yeah, he pinch hit in the Philly game. No, he came in a defensive replacement. The game he gave him off in Philly. So he came in, but Olson played that whole game the other day in Florida, the day after they clinched.
Got a homer too.
Believe it, huh? Yeah,
that's what guys say. Is that's how you put up numbers, is being out there every day. So a lot of guys want to do that.
So Dansby got in at bat and came out. So he starts 162. He was second among major league shortstops in Fangraphs WAR, man, behind Lindor. That was it. 11th among all players.
He's legit. I mean, it's too bad he doesn't put up just different offensive numbers,
right?
Like the higher OPS or something. But I don't know. I just feel like when I watch him, I'm always shocked his numbers aren't even better than what they are, because I watch him and it feels like every big at bat, even if he doesn't get a knock, he hits a ball hard.
Yeah,
I mean, he was crucial to this offense.
It's probably why it feels like his numbers should be even better, because what the bats you remember are the big ones. And
that's all I remember him doing this year, is getting big hits.
And you don't remember all the mundane at bats. The first 3 at bats in a nothing game, or a game that's not really been decided yet. You don't remember those at bats. You remember the big ones, and he's so much better than the average player in big at bats.
That's what when I think of him, I just think of who he is when the game's on the line, making a big play, making a smart play. Picking a tough backhand in the hole and throwing the guy out like it's nothing. It just seems like the more pressure that mounts in the game, the better he gets.
Austin Riley led the NL with 79 extra base hits this year, and Olson tied Mookie Betts for second. So the Braves with 2 of the top 3. Austin had 79. Olson had 78 extra base hits.
Olson had a good year.
They've won, yeah. He had 34 homers and 103 RBIs, man.
Yeah.
Braves have only had 80 extra base hits from players 6 times. Most recent was Freddie, 83 in 2016. What else? And what do you think is going to happen in the NL Cy race, man? Cy Young race.
I think Alcantara's got to get it.
I think he does, even though he struggled a little bit down the stretch. He's got like 230 innings and like 180 is 200 now, the new 200, 175. Yeah. He's got like 30 innings more practically than anybody else. And his ERA
alone, that should get it.
Yeah, and his ERA is still like second lowest or something.
Who else could take it from him?
I don't really think anybody can. I mean, Fried's going to be up there. I think Fried will be top 3. Scherzer had the IL stint. DeGrom didn't pitch nearly enough games. Gonsolin missed times. He'd be up there. Urias from the Dodgers will be way up there.
Yeah.
Urias should be way up there. But I don't see any of them. I think Alcantara is probably, in the end, I don't even think it's probably going to be as close as people think. But
the only reason it would be even close is because he's doing it in Miami.
Right.
If you ask me, I think that hurts him.
Right. Verlander would be a slam dunk in the AL, even though he had missed a lot of time. Doesn't even matter. His number
was just disgusting.
Awful. Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah, the MVP race is going to be interesting. I got MVP vote this year. So, and that's much harder than the others because most of them are 3 deep. Cy Young's 5 deep. Manager, you just we shouldn't even be voting for managers. I don't think that should be the writers. That's a really tough position to put beat writers in anyway, because we see our guy every day, and you don't really get to see everything that goes on elsewhere. But the MVP ballot is 10 deep, man. So if you care about voting, you take a lot of time. You get down to 7, 8, 9. And there's a lot of guys that could fit down there. You feel bad leaving off a couple of them, but we'll see. I put 3 Braves on mine.
Did you?
Yeah, people are gonna be surprised at how high I had that. The one that I had the highest, but I went with Goldie. I thought Goldie, he really fell off in September, but his numbers are still were so great for 4.5 months that I think he still deserved it. I did Goldie over Freddie. I had Freddie second, though. Freddie finished so strong that I ended up putting him second. I had him ahead of Arenado and Machado. If Machado hadn't gotten hurt, and he played hurt, to his credit, he played hurt for about a month. It really hurt his numbers. But he had a hell of a year, carried that offense when Tatis, obviously shit all over himself and the team in the process.
I looked up Freddie. I looked up, the NL just offensive numbers, and you clicked on any category, Freddie was top 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just quietly had an incredible year.
Yep. He had a hell of a season over there in LA.
And to do that, playing in the pressure that he had, whether part of it was self-induced, whatever, and the emotion, all the emotions of that early on when he was getting ripped for being so emotional about his ties to the Braves, to have a season in LA in that fishbowl with those big crowds, that's pretty impressive what he's done.
Just his approach. I mean, I feel like Freddie could roll out of bed and hit 300,
Truly.
I mean,
truly. One of the only guys that could.
He's right. He could go old school and just show up from a hunting trip when spring training starts and just start hitting. Like, he's just born to hit. His swing, it's so compact. And then you throw him in that lineup, I mean, he's a hell of a player. It's going to be, if they get matched up against the Dodgers,
oh my God.
I'm going to be watching Freddie's at bats really close because I want to see what he does in that series.
Yeah, he's like Chipper, man. Chipper was the other guy that truly could roll out of bed and hit 300 when he was young and healthy. He could do nothing in the offseason, and I know he could hit 300.
Play baseball. It's crazy to think about that now, that guys used to do that, because these dudes are working out. They start throwing and working out and hitting in November to show up like February 12th. Haven't even touched a bat yet.
Right. Chipper's hunting all off season, man. He ain't going in the gym.
Yeah.
I remember Gary Sheffield when I was covering with the Marlins. There used to be that date. Everybody shows up now before pitchers and catchers. Most of the guys show up so early.
Yeah.
And then on position player reporting day, everybody's there, right? And if you're not, it's like a big deal. He's like 2 days late. Why isn't he here? And that's not even the actual date they have to be there, as as a player. There's that much later date that's like March 1st that you actually have to be there before they can start fining you. Well, there were guys like Pedro Martinez that showed up on that day. They spent their offseason home in the Dominican. They showed up that day, and they were fine. Gary Sheffield did that a couple times with the Marlins. Showed up on the actual last day you could get there, and then went out and raked. But early reporting and all that, and the first 2 weeks you're spent doing before now it's only like a week before you start the game, so you couldn't do that as much now. But things have changed, man. These guys show up nowadays, and you check them, and you're looking at them going, oh, he's ready to go. I mean, they're chiseled when they get there.
Yep.
They get in better shape in the offseason.
Yeah, guys used to use spring training to get in shape, show up with a little gut, like, it'll be off by April 1st.
Show up with a boiler, you're a pitcher, you got to work it off.
I do it just to get out of the, I'd be up in the Northwest, so it's just, terrible weather for baseball. And you go down to Arizona, it's 72 and sunny.
Yeah.
Or you go down to Florida. But guys that had good setups, it's just everybody has a different routine. I don't see anybody doing it now, though. It seems like everybody's there. If you show up on report day, you're late, it feels like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And if you show up a little overweight, everybody writes about it. Post pictures about it.
Yeah. Spring training's so stupid. There's always some guy that did, some crazy new CrossFit program, and he has a good spring training because he's hitting off the AA guy in the 7th inning, and everybody gets all excited. It's like, nah.
Yeah, exactly.
He
every
still
year
sucks at baseball. It's
every
the same
year.
story every year.
Yeah, I finally stopped years ago, like caring about the fence
how people show up,
or the non-roster invitee who hits 5 home runs, in the first 12 games or whatever, off a guy that is going to spend the year in A-ball.
Yep.
The numbers that people put up early on, they're like, you think he's going to make the roster? They're like, you think he's going to make the roster? How can he not make the roster? I'm like, he's pitching against guys that are going to be in A-ball. The real major league pitchers are not even pitching more than an inning or two right now.
Yep. It's the same story every year.
And they're not even making road trips. Guys do it, when a team comes in, like a really good team comes into your place, Northport or whatever.
You don't recognize a single guy.
And the guys are lighting them up. It's like none of the real guys are here, man. Yep. They're facing their minor leaguers.
Yep. Yeah. So only a few guys can really, for me, still do that just because of how ready everybody shows up. But Freddie, Chipper, those guys could just, roll out of bed and hit 300.
Speaking of spring training, man, it's going to be interesting to see. They took some damage down there from the flood and the hurricane.
That's what I heard.
Yeah. Damage, millions. That's all I was told, was millions. But from what I understand, they had like 3 feet of water in the clubhouses.
Ooh.
They're gonna have to do all that.
Rip it all out.
Drywall, all that. And they also had some huge air conditioning units on the roofs, right? The winds were so strong, it ripped a couple of those off, the bolts, huge bolts. All the water went down in those. Oh so you had all kinds of ceilings, drywall, all that kind of shit that's going to be. And the place was like practically new.
That sucks.
So, but it was, and the dugouts were like 6 feet of water in the dugouts.
Floods are the worst, man.
Yeah.
They're just trying to dry all that out and rip everything out and replace it.
So that's what they had mostly. It was mostly, but they also had some wind. Like they have a huge sign there at, what is it? Cool Today Park. I get them confused. One of them's AAA in the ballpark, and they're real similar names. But the big sponsor sign down that's on top of the scoreboard down at Northport
ripped off.
The winds blew it off, and they couldn't even find the sign on the property. They don't even know where it blew to. That's how strong the winds were for a while.
Luckily, they've been battery's been pretty good to them. They'll be able to.
Yeah. Insurance will pay a lot of that stuff, obviously. But so I'm interested to see if they have it all ready. But they'll have it ready. Obviously, the fields will be most important. They'll have that ready in the clubhouse when we get there. But man, they haven't had a normal spring training yet since they opened that place. So they were all excited because this year they're gonna have a normal spring training and everything.
Yeah, and then they got the lockout.
Yeah, because the first year it got banged halfway through, or a little over halfway through because of the pandemic hit. Next year they couldn't have. Crowds they had the attendance ceilings on it because they had to have spacing and all that. So they haven't had a normal normal spring training there. So they're looking at, filling the place up and making some money, the people that operate that thing down there. So, and now this year you got so many people down there. Houses are, in Northport and Venice, where a lot of their fans are. There are a lot of houses destroyed down there on the beach, man, or wrecked. So, a lot of people spending their money on other things this spring, I would imagine. But anyway, all right. Well, we'll do another of these early next week, probably before the Braves open. We'll know who they play either Saturday night or Sunday, depending on how many games that series goes. So I'm sure everybody will be watching. But and then we'll have a good idea Monday probably on whether Strider's going to be ready when they put together the roster. I don't think the Braves will announce their roster probably until Tuesday before the thing, but they'll formulate that thing on Monday.
You think the Braves will get prime times for the playoffs?
With the Dodgers, Yankees in it, probably not first round.
World Series,
They will obviously for the
champs.
They will obviously for the LCS Dodgers. Yeah. But I don't know about that first round, man. They're still going to go Dodgers.
Well, I bet that
Yankees, Dodgers.
Yeah, Braves Cardinals probably isn't getting the same.
No.
Yeah, Braves Phillies.
Yeah, it should. The Braves are a marquee team now. It's just nobody's getting it over the Dodgers and the Yankees. As long as the Yankees
it'd be the Dodgers most likely playing the Mets. You got New York, LA.
Yeah, the Mets, exactly. Markets. So, but there is no Chicago in it.
I don't mind it at home. I think about it as a player. I wouldn't want to be playing at noon or 1 o'clock.
Well, the Braves have sucked in day games this year, man. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe that changes in the playoffs because everybody's going to be wired and ready when a game starts in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a little different in the
a little
playoffs.
Different, right? A little
and
different.
The crowd, the crowd energy in the playoffs,
exactly.
That'll wake you up.
Yeah. All right, we'll do it again Monday. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Here we go, postseason. 7:55 is real.